Summa Biologica, Part 2. The botany question. To answer that question, we have to go back to fundamentals. To the ultimate constituent of life, we go back to bug. We operationally define life as swimming, walking, including running and jumping, and flying. Accordingly, we classify animals, fish, and birds in those terms. A common sense classification. Birds fly in the air. If it can't fly, it's not a bird. Animals walk on the earth. If they can't walk, it's not an animal. Fish swim in the water. If it can't swim, it's not a fish. Fish, animals, and birds exhibit at least one and possibly two living characteristics, but some exhibit all three. Birds can walk and fly, but they can't truly be said to swim. They're two-thirds alive. Animals can walk and sometimes swim, but they can't fly. They're almost two-thirds alive. Fish can swim, but they can't walk or fly. They're only one-third alive. Fish, animals, and birds, in ascending order, are partial life forms. Three-thirds alive, bugs are total life forms. They can swim, walk, and fly, and even walk on water. We conclude that whatever makes up bugs is the fundamental unit of life. We also conclude that whatever lacks these three living characteristics cannot be truly said to be alive. Because they cannot swim, walk, or fly, plants cannot be classified as truly living things. Since biology deals with total and partial life forms, and plants are less than one-third alive, then botany, the study of plants, cannot truly be part of biology. While we grant traditional biologists' claims that plants and trees are alive, which is true, we don't think they're really alive enough to be part of biology. Because it's pretty obvious that they can't swim, walk, or fly. In short, they're not made out of bug. But you might say, trees can float, a somewhat passive form of swimming. And whatever can float is really alive. Large land bugs called hippos can float, and they're really alive. We've all seen trees float, so trees must be really alive too. Now that's just wrong and totally invalid. Let's put this argument to rest once and for all. First of all, not all trees float. And unlike hippos, they cannot float when they want to. Inert and bereft of desire, they have to be made to float by floods or by large land bugs called lumberjacks, in which case they're not even trees anymore, but merely logs. You might say that floating trees and logs are unpredictable and dangerous, like land bugs called bears, which are indisputably alive, by the way. Wrong again. While floating trees or logs can be unpredictable and dangerous, we cannot even remotely consider them to be conscious, as we can with land bugs called bears. Mountains and icebergs are dangerous and unpredictable too. But as any fool can plainly see, they're not alive at all, not even alive as plants. While we grant traditional biologists' claims that trees are more alive than mountains or icebergs, and they're not alive enough to fly, walk, or swim. They're alive, but not really alive, you see. The same holds true for all non-bug life, called flowers and plants. The inert and inverted life of plants. So we conclude the obvious. Botany, while clearly a science, is not part of biology. It is and ought to be a science on its own, a study of inferior forms of life. Have you ever seen a tree, plant, or bush run from a fire? Were plants and trees truly alive, forest fires would be far less destructive, burning only the slower and weaker among them, making the biblical burning bush somewhat less plausible. But, no, forest fires are immensely destructive, killing all non-bug life in their path. How many times have we witnessed burning bushes just sit there, like Buddhist monks afire, and make no apparent effort to save themselves? Unlike land bugs called monks, bushes can't save themselves because they cannot even choose to want to do so. As we have proved by strong assertion, they lack desire. They're inert, and they're inert because they're inverted. Plants live an upside-down kind of life. Trees, plants, and bushes are inverted life forms, with their heads, mistakenly called roots, in the ground, limbs and genitals swinging in the air, and seeds blindly blowing in the wind. Of all the parentage of theirs is among the most irresponsible and, dare we say, exhibitionist. This is because of plants' inertial and inverted lifestyles. The behavior of fruit trees and flowers is even worse, and leads us to conclude that they are the root of all evil. No pun intended. This brings us to respond and reconsider to bioethics. Unlike creationists and neo-Darwinists, we put bug-based theology back into biology, the only common-sense theology there is. End of part 2.